Hello, and welcome to a Tabletop Ramblings tournament review. So, I'm going to Lord of the Rings Spooky GT in a couple of days. It's at Imps Gaming in Lincoln, and it's an 800-point tournament. So, I'm going to be taking this list here that you can see. It's Survivors of Laketown with their best friend Legolas from the Mirkwood list. And it's an 800 points version of a list you've may or may not have seen on the channel. There's a 600 and a 700 version of this that's been on the channel before. The tournament, it's quite a small local tournament. There's just going to be 10 of us there, and it's just a good opportunity to test out this list, which I'm potentially going to take, depending on how badly it gets steamrolled, to another event that's good and evil, which is why it's not my favourite Mordor list that you see before you. So Imps Gaming, it's Lord of the Rings Spooky GT, and there's the usual prizes, first, second and third, the wooden spoon that we're hoping for. There's also best painted, and there is most spooky, because this is of course over the Halloween weekend. So that's why there's Pumpkinhead Bard that you might have seen in the Halloween special, and he is looking for his head, which are those 6 objective markers in the front, the 6 different options of which head it may be, and that is the spooky element to this list. The list itself is dead simple. It's Bard with armour. He's got his 2 kids, because all good dads take their kids to war. He's got Alfred, and then he's got 15 militia. 4 of them have just got shields, 6 have a shield and spear, and then there's 5 bows. There's Gandalf on a horse. He's got an identical warband, just without Alfred and the kids. And then the captain has 3 with shield. He's got 5 with spear and shield, and 4 with bow. And then Legolas is mounted with armour, and he is just a single drop. And that is 800 points of the Survivors of Laketown. This list has got a couple of tricks. You've got Legolas and all the bows doing a lot of shooting, and Bard of course. So heroes like to hide away from the shooting, but then Gandalf abuses heroes that hide by catapulting models into them and knocking them off horses and that kind of thing, as well as providing blinding light and all of the other shenanigans that wizards do. It does synergize quite well, but it's also made of paper and has the courage of a potato, so definitely gonna have some difficult matchups, but it should be good fun at the very least. The models themselves are quite heavily converted. You may or may not have seen them on the channel. There's all sorts of different things, from old Empire models. This one here, Santa, he is one of the cannon loaders from an old Empire cannon set. There's some Haradrim in there. This lady at the back, she's a Haradrim bowman. There's High Elves. There's Boromir from the Fellowship. There's all sorts of different models, along with a couple of actual Survivors of Laketown as well. So, at the very least, it's been a very fun project that's slowly grown over time, and it'll be good to get it out and see what it can do in a fairly competitive setting. Now that we've seen the army, I'll get these packed away, ready, and I'll see you there. Let's do this. So, for round 1, I was against Mordor, and this list featured the Witch King on horse with Crown, and he was fully decked out with 3 Might, 20 Will, and 3 Fate. He also had Shagrat with all of his gear. He had a Troll Chieftain and Shelob. Between them, they were leading a big horde of orcs with a couple of Black Numenorians in there as well. Round 1, we had the choice between Hold Ground and Storm the Camp, and I think we ended up leaving it to a roll-off, and we chose Storm the Camp. This photo was taken fairly early on during the battle, and the lines never really moved from here, as normally happens in Storm the Camp. The lines meet halfway, and then nothing really happens. We didn't really have any mobile units. Shelob is there on the left of the screen. She got countered by 10 or so guys, and Legolas, and also Bard, who'd stolen a point of might from... not Bard, Alfred, sorry, who'd stolen a point of might from Bard. He had a well-timed heroic move. Legolas and Gandalf, right at the start, had been abusing the Witch King, who came very far forward to get some spells off, and he definitely lost the magic duel against Gandalf, with Legolas peppering him as well. He tried to hide out of the way and support Shelob. Ultimately, he died, but so did Bard, who, as you can see with the pumpkin on his head, was taunting some orcs, but unfortunately, he didn't realise Shagrat was there. I'd not really paid attention to Shagrat because he wasn't the leader, and the troll was massive and I could see him. I didn't really take into account Shagrat. He won a heroic move roll-off. He annihilated Bard in one turn with the troll's help, and it was all a big, horrible mess. But then, the battle just stayed where it was. Legolas and Alfred the Brave killed Shelob. Neither camp got taken, and it was a 3-3 draw to bring a fairly inauspicious beginning and low-scoring first round. But certainly a very, very fun game. Game 2 was against a lovely chap who was quite new to the game, and he was bringing Thorin's company. We had the choice between Lords of Battle and Seize the Prize, and I knew that Lords of Battle I would get absolutely annihilated, so we rolled off, and fortunately it went Seize the Prize. And as you can see in this photo, that's turn 1. Gandalf has been marched up, he's dismounted, and he's digging for the objective. The Thorin's company, they deployed quite far back. Well, obviously they had to deploy far back, but they deployed off-centre a bit to try and use cover. And it took them quite a while to get to the objective, which was unfortunate, really, for Thorin's company, because Gandalf was able to pick it up, and it was a bit of a sealed deal at this point. This photo is about turn 4. My force have bubble wrapped the objective. Gandalf has run back behind my line of about 4 thick, and he's given it to Legolas. The captain is quite far up towards that river. Next turn, he is going to march Legolas over those pontoons. He then moves off, and there's absolutely nothing that the company can do to stop it, unfortunately. Meanwhile, even with blinding lights and with the little bit of terrain cover, Bard and the archers have just torn the company to bits. They've killed, I think, 2 by this point, and every single fate roll that Thorin's company had to make in the entire game failed, which really, really hurt them. It turned, any time a wound happened, it turned them into just a 1 wound, vulnerable defense 4 or 5 dwarf. The heavy hitters, the strong armored ones tended to be okay, but the weaker ones got picked on, and then the force was able to break and ultimately get quartered. I think my opponent here was victim a little bit of not quite being too familiar with the scenarios. I did point out the importance of taking that central objective, but the worry of all of the shenanigans that Miles can do played on his mind, I think. But once Thorin's company did start chewing into my lines, he very nearly broke me. So I quartered him, but that's only sort of, I think he had 11 in total. He was left with 2 or 3 on the board. He killed 20 plus of mine. I was about 2 off break when we went to time. Oh, in fact, no, this one didn't go to time. This one went to 25%. So he was very close to breaking me. But in the end, it was a 12-0 win to the Survivors of Laketown.
Yeah, lost 2 guns and 2 horses in one. On the first round.
Final game of day 1 was against another Mordor list. This was led by Shagrat. It also had a Troll Chieftain. There was Guritz, a Shaman, and Goroth in there, and a whole host of Moran and Orcs. 30 or 40 or so, a very big army. Nearly as large as mine, but not quite the 49 models of the Survivors of Laketown, so the force didn't get the army bonus. This game, we had the choice between either Clash by Moonlight or To the Death. And my opponent saw that I had Alfred and the 2 kids and opted for Clash by Moonlight. So we went for Clash by Moonlight, and I don't think he quite realised how lethal that would make my bows. It cut the range in half, but +1 to wound was brutal. His Troll Chieftain, in this photo, his Troll Chieftain is already dead. It never swung its blade. It managed to get into combat on no fate, 1 wound, but Legolas one-shots it. It took 2 of his might, but the fact that that died before combat was massive. The biggest thing, though, was the dice. He, towards the middle of the game, there became a point at which not a single 4 high was rolled, whereas all of my guys, bar possibly Gandalf, was rolling a 6 to win. His banner was always on the floor, as was Shagrat, which definitely helped. There was a lot of blasting going on, and he lost every heroic move roll-off. So he was always going second. He was pinned on the floor. Bard went on a rampage, because there was no one to stop him. He'd one-shot Goroth with a heroic combat into him. It was a bloodbath, and it was a little bit horrible, really. By the end, it was quite demoralising for him, and it wasn't an enjoyable experience for me, simply because it was just the dice. Every single combat, I was winning everything, even when I shouldn't. Everyone was winning, and it was just, it was a bloodbath, really. I broke him, killed all of his heroes, and killed 25 in total, and only lost 5 Survivors of Laketown. No wounds on any heroes. That shouldn't happen, really, but the dice sometimes go that way. So that was a 12-0 victory, putting me on an all-right footing. Not the top of the first day, but certainly 2 12-0 victories is quite a good place to be. Definitely a lot of luck so far, and the scenarios have definitely been in my favour. And the dice, certainly with that third game, the dice were definitely MVP. So first game of day 2. This is game number 4, and I am against the chap that yesterday has gone 3-0. So I am quite worried. These are a crack bunch of elves led by Glorfindel. There's also Haldir in there, bringing those Fight 6 crazy pikemen, and there's a Restor, couple of knights. It's a very strong elven list, and we have the choice between Recon and Domination. And normally I would go Domination, because Recon, it's very hard for me to get stuff off the board, but against quite a small elite force, I figure Recon is probably my best option, because split up in Domination, I'm just going to get wiped out. So we roll off, and it does go to Recon, which is the first little win. And the second is that I've already got this battle planned out. My captain is marching up as quick as possible, bringing along Gandalf and Legolas, who can then threaten, and it pans out quite well. As you can see here from this photo, the captain with Legolas and Gandalf are already not that far off the board edge. Bard is on the halfway line. The biggest issue, though, is that Bard has been dubiously counselled. He spent a point of might to enter the board, and then Alfred counselled him out of all his might and stole 2. The next couple of turns, Gandalf is giving will to Alfred, something I generally don't do, but in this situation it needed it. And Alfred then stole another might to make him 3, and then he then finally ended up giving a point of might to Bard. So Bard has 1 might. There's Alfred on 3. It's not good. Bard, however, having no might, kind of hung back and stayed safe, which ultimately was possibly quite useful. He threatened the left, while the main bulk went up on the right. And my opponent didn't quite know what to do, I think. He was going left and right, trying to head off, trying to sort of go for Bard, but then wanting to go for the centre, and did a little bit too much side-to-side movement instead of forward. So he ended up fighting in the centre, but on that right flank, my right, we ended up fighting so far up that Legolas was able to spring shot off with a heroic combat, and he got so close to the edge of the board that he ran off. I should have dismounted him or just stood there right at the board edge and shot, and then gone across. But in my haste, I just sent him off, forgetting about that plan. But ultimately, even with his 2 might going off the board, he was followed by a couple of other guys later on. So I got the 3 off that I needed. The battle staled in the centre. My guys, there was one crucial turn where I just had 3 guys blocking off hordes and hordes of elves, which isn't something you say often. And only one of them died, which meant he just couldn't get through quick enough. And combined with still having Bard and Gandalf to threaten, just couldn't get anything off. And so it was 7 for me for getting those 3 off. I did break, and he was miles off breaking. My force crumbled, but importantly, got those guys off. There were some runners on the other side, but without the captain and a mounted unit heroic combating, they ran forward every single turn and never got off the board. So the march and the heroic combat was really what won that game. I did break in the last turn, so we got 3 points for that because he was unbroken, but it was a 7-3 win. And it was a very, very good game. Very tense if those knights and Glorfindel were going to break through. But fortunately, the terrain and the scenario, they just didn't quite work for him. And ultimately, it was a win for Survivors of Laketown. So at this point now, it's 3 wins, 1 draw going into the final. Things are getting a little bit nerve-wracking now. So we're into the final game, and I believe there are 4 of us that can win. My opponent from the first game has got the same score as me, a draw, and then he's gone on to win the rest. The chap that I beat in the previous game has 3 and a loss. If I lose this and he wins, then he can win. And my opponent has lost 1 and won the rest. So again, if he beats me, then he will top spot. So it's quite a tense game. There's quite a lot of different factors, and the scenario is a choice between Contest of Champions and Fog of War. And I absolutely love Fog of War, although Contest of Champions for me is probably the better scenario. So I'm thinking Contest of Champions, and he says, I really want Contest of Champions. And I'm a bit confused because his list is the Tainted, Birder, Warg Chief, Captain on Warg, Barrow White, and an awful lot of Orcs with some Spectres and a Cave Troll. It's a brutal list, but Birder isn't his leader. His leader is the Tainted. But he then says he's already spoken to the TOs, and the Tainted has a special rule, whereas if he's in base contact with models, enemy models, then on the roll of a 6, in the combat phase, they die as though a wound has been inflicted, and it's been ruled that that will count as kills, because it says in the scenario that magic and shooting don't count towards leader kills in Contest of Champions, but this will. Despite this, though, we still opt for the scenario, taking the logic that this is the one he wants to do, and if I lose, at least that takes away some of the agency of it, and it wasn't my fault. So we go for it. I'm still relatively hopeful, because Bard can certainly cut down these Defense 5 Orcs as long as he doesn't get hurled into and brutalised by spells. This is unfortunately the only photo I took of the battle. I was so caught up in it. This is a little bit on. My centre got absolutely destroyed because my heroes abandoned it. He got first turn priority. I couldn't counter because the Tainted turned off my heroic moves, so I left the centre, but it got me away from his magic. It meant the Tainted was stuck in the middle because he was surrounded by Orcs, and he got shot and blasted until he died from Gandalf and Legolas burning all of their might to kill him before he could get a kill. Bard, on something like turn 3, went into 2 Orcs right out on the left, miles away from the Trolls, away from the Barrow White. He killed 2, heroic combat into 1, and killed them. This was on the turn that the Tainted died. The Tainted had managed to transfix him, and Bard rolled a 1 to resist. So Bard, who was super Bard at this point with 6 might, used 4 might to resist it. It had gone off on a 5, he resisted it, and then he got those 3 kills. At which point, with the Tainted dead on 0 kills, Bard on 3, it's a guaranteed either 7-2, even if I break and he doesn't win to me. Because even if he kills Bard, if it's not the leader that kills him in this scenario, it doesn't count. So I've got the win, which is a bizarre situation with just over an hour to go in the game. So we played on so that he could get the break points. We broke each other, so it was an 8-1 win in the end, and I was just a little bit dazed, really, that I'd won. Looking across, I'm trying to work out whether the people I need to win are winning and the people I need to lose are losing, but who knows at this point. So we wrap up this game. It was a brilliant game. It was really, really fun. The kids were getting into combat. Alfred was brave enough to charge the Trolls. When there's nothing riding on it, you can have a really, really fun game. It is the best way to play. And it was just really, really fun. It was a great sport, really good opponent, really good game, as everyone was at this weekend. It was a fantastic tournament. Everyone was really great fun to play against. So we're back, and we can go through the prizes. So the wooden spoon, that went to a great chap. He had with him Isengard, which was a whole bucket full of berserkers painted with the helmets into pumpkins, and they had backing them up a couple of warriors, a couple of pike supports led by Saruman. There was Ugluk and Mauher. There was also the ballista and a crossbow, but unfortunately he didn't quite manage to get lucky with the berserkers. I gather that they just didn't perform for him, and unfortunately he took the wooden spoon. The best painted went to the Mordor army that I played game 3. If you could see in that photo, it was beautifully painted. It was a really, really nice army and a well-deserved win. And then most spooky, bizarrely, was me. The pumpkin-headed bard and his head objective markers managed to take it quite a close call, I believe, from the votes. But amazingly, the pumpkin-headed bard and his not quite survivors of Laketown managed to pip that, and the prize, which I should have prepared closer on hand, the prize, if it will focus, was amazing. The Witch King of Angmar, the new Witch King model. So very, very pleased about that. The painting one, we should mention that one was a set of dice. Very good prize, and then this one as well, another fantastic prize. And then for the tournament itself, there was a prize for first place, second, and third. And in third place, it was the best painted. Third place, the Mordor army with Shagrat as the leader was the third place, and they won some bronze dice as well as a £20 gift voucher for Imps Gaming. The player that came second was the Elves and Lothlorien list that I played in game 4. Very, very strong list, good player, and he secured himself some silver dice and a £30 gift voucher. And by some incredible miracle, the survivors of Laketown managed to pip the others at the post and took first place. And the prize was quite incredible. First place won me this 1,000 points Return of the King Legendary Legion army. It's the 3 Hunters sculpts, Aragorn, Legolas and Gimli, along with a huge host of 30 odd Warriors of the Dead with the King and 2 Heralds, along with a lovely little objective or turn token and the gold Imps Gaming dice. That is an incredible prize for first place, and an equally incredible surprise that I was able to walk away with such an incredible prize. So massive thanks to Imps Gaming for running this tournament. It was really, really good fun. If you're anywhere near Lincoln, they've got lots of events for other systems, and they also run a lot of Middle-earth events, so do check out their Facebook page. I'll put a link in the description. Do check them out. This was a brilliant tournament. It's the first one I've been to at Imps. I will definitely be going back, and who knows, there might even be this list going to another tournament. It'll certainly feature on the channel, perhaps not as the full 1,000, maybe as sort of split up, but it's definitely going to feature at some point. So thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope it's inspired you to go to a tournament, maybe a local one to you, or even one in Lincoln. I'm going to a tournament next weekend as well. Managed to somehow blag that with the missus, that I could go away 2 weekends in a row. So if you enjoyed this format, if you enjoyed little tournament breakdowns, I'll try and sort of put something out for that. Again, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.